We have a motion and a second. And again, it is to have a resolution of intent to contract the community region boundary lines as presented in the maps by Parlin and Van Dyke for Shingle Springs and Green Valley, respectively. Corridor, respectively.
That's my motion, ma'am.
It does include Green Valley.
Yeah, what's Green Valley Corridor?
It's the map that was given to us by Ms. Van Dyke.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
No.
Motion carries 3-1.
Right. You're sticking up the
Okay, but this
process,
is
right?
just the start of a process, you guys.
All right.
We got to
Madam
get
Chair,
going, yeah.
My second motion
Yes, second motion.
would direct the CAO to return with a budget transfer from contingency with a budget transfer from, I'm picking on contingency, but it could be any source, in the amount sufficient to pay the cost of the resolution of intent project scope. So I'll delete the environmental. Well, that's what I'm assuming, the resolution of intent will have the environmental on the entire project? No? So tell me what I need.
It will just be the resolution of intent to amend. It'll have the maps attached, and it will direct staff to begin the environmental process. So the funding to move the money would be to cover the cost of doing the environmental work.
All right, so direct the CAO to return with a budget transfer from a source in the amount in an amount sufficient to cover costs of the resolution of intent, project scope, and the environmental analysis. That's
Is
my
there a
motion.
second?
We don't have any money.
I was going to say, what's that quote? You know, your body's writing.
A check you can't cash.
Right. Our good intentions are writing checks that our budget can't cash. Our contingency is already woefully
Impacted.
minute, and it keeps getting rated. No disrespect on the board, and so I'm
Let's
just.
have the budget presentation next week.
It might be more prudent of us to identify, to try to identify a funding source after we go through some of our department meetings over the next 2 weeks, because contingency I think has gone from 10 million to like 3.7.
So maybe the motion should be that it would be when we get the resolution of intent back that it's also presented a discussion about how we're going to budget,
options.
how we're going to fund the particular.
To bring back options.
And CDA staff would want to work with the CAO's office to provide the analysis about how much time we think it would take, what kind of environmental document, and also potential impacts to other projects. One thing we haven't talked about is how this might affect the CIP and TIMFI update going forward, because we're talking about changes in land use potentially that affects the roadway network, level of service, so you could in theory have a couple of iterations of that CIP and TIMFI process moving forward. So we want to take a step back and do a little bit of that analysis as well.
So just to move this along, then I would move that with the resolution of intent as described in the previous motion, that that staff come back with recommendations or options as to funding the.
So do we tie that into decision point 4 objective here, which says determine project priority and identify necessary resources? This is the resources, but we haven't talked priority either. So I would like to, if we're going to do this relative to this, I would like to set top 4 priorities. And I've got them on my list. I don't know if they fit your list. And that's LUPU, sign, biologicals, and then this review. And some of them may dovetail into this, and so they may be able to work simultaneously, but we have got to get LUPU, the sign, and the biological, because they're holding back
Everything else.
including this, realistically. Is that,
Yeah, so, okay, make sure, I'm going to try this motion again.
sorry.
I would move that along with the resolution of intent as described in the previous motion, that staff provide a recommendations or options regarding funding the resolution of intent, given the following priorities: LUPU, sign ordinance, biology, the biological policy, and then this being the fourth priority.
And those are the projects on the land use side of the long-range planning
They're
house. The CIP and TIM
Oh,
fee
right.
would be on the transportation side of the house.
Yeah.
Okay, is that sufficient for you guys?
I think that gives us a good roadmap for what you want us to bring
And
back.
that's a given to CIP. I mean, that's already top list, and it's moving as well.
Okay, that's my motion.
I second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion?
One quick question. When you name those priorities as Lupu sign, do you really mean it in that order?
I think that's what she was trying to put in the record, yes.
Yeah.
And LUPU is pretty comprehensive.
But we don't want to make it a 10-year process.
Yeah, I would most probably switch signs with the biological impact.
And maybe this is something we can drill down on in our strategic plan efforts too,
Yeah.
when we get there.
That too. So.
I have no problems with us, based upon the discussions we have over the next, well, I'm only going to be part of it for 1 week, over the next several weeks, and looking at what comes out of the strategic planning process, that if we need to modify those priorities based upon that discussion, that we can do that. But first of all, I see those as being the ones that we need to really focus on, understanding that that might change.
It's not in the priority order, but they're the 4 priorities
Right.
that we have.
Right.
Perfect.
Okay? Is the motion sufficient for you, staff, and for direction?
Well, I thought the motion was to direct the staff to bring, the CAO to bring back funding options and funding concepts when this comes back.
Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page with regards to the motion.
I have a good understanding of the motion. I think when we come back, we'll want to have a bit more specific discussion, not only about funding, but about prioritization, et cetera. But I think we have good marching orders to bring you back information.
Perfect. Okay. Any more questions, Supervisor Frenzen? I haven't called for it. I just want to make sure.
It's her
Okay, so
meeting.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Michalako recusing himself, and I should have noted that in that previous motion as well.